I'm Michelle Miller. Welcome to Eye on America, where we explore stories of the American experience. First, we turn our attention to the lack of diversity in our classrooms. Among the general shortage of teachers in the U.S., there is a specific need for more Black male educators. Jim Axelrod introduces us to a nonprofit in Philadelphia working to advance teacher diversity.
Every day that Joseph Harris shows up for work at the high school he attended in South Philadelphia, he addresses his past and these kids' futures.
Y'all about to graduate, man.
I see myself again in some of these students.
It's real.
I've had the same struggles.
Yeah, you about to graduate.
I felt pain like these students felt pain.
Blue drop, yellow drop.
At 22, Harris, who was pre-law,
One at a time.
is now working toward a teacher's certificate.
How many male teachers of color did you have growing up?
I didn't have a male Black teacher until my 9th grade year.
Do you think it matters?
Oh, for sure.
In fact, one study shows just one teacher of color in 3rd through 5th grades reduces a student of color's chances of dropping out before graduation by up to 39%. But Black men make up just 2% of teachers in America, something Sharif El-Mekki is on a mission to change.
Nothing's more effective for Black kids than having Black teachers.
Absolutely.
El-Mekki runs the Center for Black Educator Development, a nonprofit aimed at attracting more Black men into the teaching field.
If a Black child has a Black educator, they're less likely to be expelled, suspended, or even referred for disciplinary actions. They're more likely to have a higher sense of belongingness in the classroom and within the school. And we say teachers of color are also important for white students as well.
Any progress?
At the Charles F. Patton Middle School in suburban Philadelphia, Amir Williams is a student teacher.
Does it make sense?
Now a college sophomore, he didn't have a Black teacher until Mr. Anderson taught him history in 6th grade.
He told me to walk in my greatness. And hearing those words come from his mouth was like really liberating. It gave me a lot of confidence.
Had anyone ever said that to you before?
No.
You, man, how's everything?
That is exactly why El-Mekki wants to quadruple the number of Black male teachers over the next 10 years.
It's as simple as if you can see it, you can be it. You have someone, a Black male, who you look exactly like, and then it makes you think that if they can do it, why not? Why can't I?
Great job today, great job on the lab.
Which may be the most important lesson these kids can ever learn.
We're staying in the classroom for our next story. Some kids are learning to build the future with a popular video game called Minecraft. The federal government took notice, and now the game is also being utilized to enhance children's so-called STEM skills. Errol Barnett shows us how.
We welcome you to DTW Airport.
Real airports in a virtual world. What began as a simple idea from the FAA to engage kids stuck in isolation during the pandemic grew to include more than 2,800 students from 180 countries taking on the challenge using the video game building world of Minecraft.
We have created a fully autonomous electric plane powered by solar panels.
Grade schoolers in Grand Rapids came up with the Space Escape Terminal.
Another exciting innovation, SaniPod.
A team from Detroit added virus detectors.
We all really love building giant structures.
Brothers Brian and Sean Bartello of Buffalo, New York, teamed with Abby Rowe of West Virginia to design runway lights at Charleston's Yeager Airport.
They really like the bioluminescent fungi.
That's right. 2 11-year-olds and a 9-year-old came up with bioluminescent fungi.
They give off a lot of light and they're eco-friendly.
Please help me congratulate the West Virginia Mountaineers.
Those bright lights gave them bragging rights as they won in their age group. But what they prize most? Making new connections during a disconnected time.
In one word, meaningful.
Even through this craziness, we still made a best friends.
After the break, we're going off the grid with a look at a popular type of new home. This is Eye on America. The threat of climate change is pushing some folks to explore new ways of living. Janet Shamlian takes us to New Mexico, where an eco-minded community is building homes with extreme sustainability.
Along a rural road in northern New Mexico, they rise from the dusty desert with futuristic shapes resembling something from another planet. But these are what's known as Earthships, off-the-grid homes built into the ground, made mostly from recycled materials, what some would call garbage. Like used tires tightly packed with dirt for insulation and structural walls. And old bottles that become part of the interior.
It's kind of like stained glass, but we're using all recycled bottles.
There are no power lines, water lines, or sewage lines connected to this Earthship under construction. Electricity is generated from solar panels. Water is collected on the roof, then filtered, and the treated sewage nourishes plants and trees.
This is the outer greenhouse.
76-year-old architect Michael Reynolds is the grandfather of the Earthship concept.
So this is kind of the inner part of the building.
Building the first one in 1979 and teaching others ever since. There are more than 100 Earthships here, potentially many more soon.
Are you able to quantify the increase in, inquiries that you're getting?
Oh, I would say it's doubled.
In the last couple of years?
No, in the last couple of months.
Skyrocketing energy prices and a growing desire to live sustainably amid climate change are fueling demand for homes that generally don't use fuel.
What's it like to live in an Earthship?
It was a very, very small leap. What you're told at the beginning, oh my goodness, you're off grid. That's got to be the worst thing in the world.
John LaSala spent 40 years living and working in New York City.
I love the way this house functions.
He bought this Earthship 5 years ago for about $300,000 and says he hasn't looked back.
You practice what we all should be practicing, which is conservation. So if there's clouds for 3 days, you don't turn on the inverter, which means you have electricity for the primary stuff, but your computer and your stereo can't plug in. This room was built by the original owners.
His 1,200 square foot home has no microwave and no clothing dryer. On the other hand, the propane to heat water cost him about $90 a year.
No regrets?
No, none at all. None at all. I wouldn't live any other way.
A way others are considering.
We have a few things going on today to finish the house.
This is the Earthship Academy, a 4-week immersive class where people from all over travel to the community, about a 30-minute drive from Taos. Learning, like this Hollywood production designer, Bianca Farrow, how to build an Earthship.
Every job, we build all our sets and then we throw everything in the trash. And so I've just found over the years that in my free time, I just want to combat that in some way. I want to find solutions.
This home is already sold to a Florida couple. The students live in an Earthship while they learn.
You just have to come and see and experience it. I've been living in one for almost a month.
You don't need a class to check out life off the grid.
So this is just a master bedroom with a walk-in closet down below.
Homes like this are available on vacation rental sites. It's a chance to test drive a lifestyle of extreme sustainability. Just don't bring a hairdryer.
What would you say to someone who's looking around and interested in potentially living this way?
Your typical human still lives for the American dream. My custom home with my dressing room that has room for 60 pairs of shoes and blah, 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 blah. Those days, in my mind, I'm already seeing it, are gone.
Earthships are an oddity. But amid renewed interest in living untethered, a surge of eco-friendly construction here. And for those who've already made the lifestyle choice, validation.
It's kind of like a conspiracy of enlightenment. You know, everybody's their way, but they live here all for basically the same reason. They want to be off grid, they like the isolation of it, they like the stunning beauty of it, and they think this is a better way to go.
From sustainable homes to sustainable spirits. In the United States, nearly 80 billion pounds of food ends up in landfills every year. But as Nichelle Medina shows us, one California distillery is turning would-be waste into cocktails.
Whit Regali never expected to be making vodka, let alone helping ease the nation's food waste problem.
For the most part, anything in a grocery store or bakery aisle, we can turn to vodka.
In 2017, Regali, a bartender, and his partner Samuel Shareskin, an agricultural economist, had an idea some considered half-baked: take old bread products and turn them into vodka.
Baked goods is just a resource like anything else. It's made from starches and sugars, which are the building blocks to making all alcohol. And so that was really our light bulb moment.
The company, called Misadventure Vodka, gets a load of more than 1,000 pounds of bread products from a San Diego food bank. Most items are past their expiration date, but still usable.
Each bottle of vodka produced keeps about 2 pounds of food out of a landfill.
The concept is part of a growing trend called upcycling, transforming food waste into ingredients for new products. Rise Flour, a New York-based company, created a flour crafted from beer. Toast Ale is brewed with surplus bread that would otherwise be tossed out. Misadventure Vodka claims to be the first carbon-negative spirit in the world.
With our process, some of the vanilla extracts come through, and so there's a subtle sweet note with that vanilla.
That taste is served up in cocktails at the company's tasting room. Customer Walt McCalma says the brand offers a unique flavor.
This gives a whole new meaning to drinking responsibly.
That's a really good way to put it. I feel good about drinking it. I feel like I'm doing it, being a steward to the environment.
Misadventure mostly sells online, but is hoping to expand the operation and help change the planet one sip at a time.
We move on now to protecting one of Mother Nature's most noble creatures. America's bald eagles have soared back from the brink of extinction over the last decade. But today, that symbol of freedom may be under a new threat posed by hunters. Charlie DeMar visited one wildlife center on a mission to help.
Any little move you do, they're just suspicious of it.
Jacques Nuzzo's mission is to heal broken birds of prey.
She was a juvenile, literally was laying in a guy's gutter on his house.
At the Illinois Raptor Center, the goal is to get every bird back into the wild.
Good job.
Some will never leave.
She had multiple issues, but lead was one of those issues. This is a male.
Others aren't as lucky.
It's hard to see something so powerful and majestic become so weak and helpless.
Just make sure there's nothing broken on 38 bald eagles have been brought in since 2018.
We're going to check for any lead fragments.
Half have shown alarming levels of lead.
All right, I'm coming.
8 died from lead poisoning. 3 died this March alone, including one the day before our visit. Eagles and vultures are scavengers, cleaning up what nature leaves behind. They feast on the remains left by hunters.
If there's just a little bit of that lead from that ammunition in there, that's where the eagles get it from. That's where the vultures get it from.
So something as small as 1 BB is enough to kill an eagle?
Yes. As far as, lead toxicity goes, yeah.
So here's the plasma samples.
Travis Wilcoxon is chairman of the biology department at nearby Millikan University, and he's on the Raptor Center board. He and Nuzzo decided to start testing all the birds brought in.
Some of the birds that really started to catch our eye were birds that do not scavenge. These are birds that actively hunt live prey, like the Cooper's hawk and the eastern screech owl.
We definitely see a lot of lead in these guys.
They were surprised to find that a third of the raptors they treated, like these Cooper's hawks and screech owls, showed high levels of lead. So they decided to test the birds they prey on. Like pigeons and robins, they found alarming levels of lead there too.
To us, that said, there's something in the environment that these birds are exposed to, likely in these urban settings. We're probably exposed to that too.
This might be a record for us.
A grim one.
Yeah, it is.
Lead's devastating impact on these birds, a stark reminder of the dangers it still presents to all of us.
Coming up, how public health research could reduce the number of children hurt or killed by firearms. Next on Eye on America. We close out our show with an important story of parents pleading for stronger gun safety laws. A 2020 study found that guns became the leading cause of death among those aged 1 to 19 in America. Dr. Tara Narula sat down with 3 parents who lost their children to firearms and a doctor seeking a cure to our epidemic of gun injuries and death.
This isn't something that happened to us. This is our life now. I often say that I feel like my DNA has been rewired since Daniel was shot to death.
Waiting for the ER doctor to come in, we had no idea Ethan had been shot. I thought he had gotten hit by a car.
I was afraid of it for a long time because Jonah struggled with his mental health. I didn't fight hard enough. I didn't take a stand and say there are not going to be any unlocked guns in my home.
The gun Jonah accessed was registered to Gwen LaCroix's then-husband, who confirmed to CBS News that it was stored unlocked and unloaded in a separate part of the house from the bullets and in compliance with Michigan law.
Whether you're talking about accidental injuries or firearm-related suicide, either one is an exploration for a younger kid or another thing is an impulsive behavior. And why is it that we have, mental health issues in other countries, like Canada, Europe, are no different than here? But the lethality when you have access to a firearm is just exponentially higher.
Firearms are the leading cause of death ages 1 to 19, and 2/3 of those deaths are suicides. It's estimated 13 million kids in the U.S. live in a home with at least one firearm.
My son and his best friend were posting to social media on a fake account, and the detective said there was probably 100 kids who knew your son and his best friend were playing with guns and said nothing. And that is why it is our job to protect our children from themselves.
Following Ethan's death in 2018, the Song family successfully lobbied for a Connecticut state law strengthening requirements around safe storage of firearms in homes. Opponents in the state legislature called Ethan's law too broad, but it passed with bipartisan support, and a federal version has been introduced.
I was just asking basically to step up and make sure that people cannot get a hold of unsecured guns. Eight children a day are dying because they've gained access to a gun.
30 states and the District of Columbia have passed child access prevention laws like Ethan's law. A similar measure was working its way through the Michigan legislature at the time of the Oxford school shooting.
Do you think that this is something that is not on most parents' radar?
I think it depends on where you live.
Yeah.
There are families who live with this every day as part of their reality, and unfortunately they're not getting the support and the attention that those of us who have suffered high-profile tragedies.
For more than 20 years, federally funded research into gun injury prevention was prohibited. In 2019, Congress lifted that ban. Dr. Sathya is among the first to receive NIH funding to study the root causes of gun injury and death.
Obviously, this is an area that was not funded for a very long time. What did that do to our understanding of firearm safety?
If you look at the leading causes of death, whether they be heart disease, motor vehicle collisions, cancer, firearms have always been at the top, and they receive less than 1% of the funding of those other diseases.
I feel frustrated that we continue to come forward with our stories, and the inaction continues to make Jonah's loss even worse than it already is.
Our research right now that's funded by the NIH is focused on asking every single patient who comes into our hospital questions related to firearm injury risk. And so we're actually using a model that we use for substance use, where we started asking everybody. That's what helped normalize those conversations. And then if you screen positive for access, you're going to get gun locks, firearm safety counseling, and if you screen positive for violence risk, you're going to get violence interrupters, community resources to hopefully break that cycle of violence.
How do you feel about gun ownership?
I have no problem if someone owns a gun. I'm against negligent, reckless behavior.
I would like to see there be consequences for gun-owning adults who allow children to get a hold of their guns and either hurt themselves or someone else.
We work with a ton of gun owners. Gun-owning parents are even more appreciative of having that conversation because they really understand the importance of safety.
I've found that most gun owners that I speak to identify as responsible gun owners.
All three of us, it's a safe storage issue. In all three of our situations, the gun could have been stored in the time it takes you to take one breath.
What have you learned about the incidents that you've prevented through Sandy Hook Promise?
School shootings, mass casualty events that someone says something over social media or in passing to somebody in school, if that individual is trained in our Say Something program, they know exactly what to do. And they can tell a trusted adult who can get that person help.
How do we humanize this and keep the faces of your children present and all the children that have been lost so that it's not just about statistics and numbers.
I always have pictures of my little Daniel to look at the face of my sweet little 7-year-old boy who was innocently in his first grade classroom when he was shot to death. And if that doesn't resonate with you.
My youngest James was 3 when Jonah died, and he doesn't remember Jonah. It's very difficult to grow through that and to understand, and to not have that big brother to guide you.
I really walk people through Ethan's day. I want them to viscerally feel what it's like to have your son tell you about all his hopes and dreams. And then, you know, an hour later, he's dead. I want people to watch the ER doctor literally slide down the wall and put his head in his hands and whisper, "Your son is gone."
As a pediatric trauma surgeon who's had to walk into that waiting room and deliver news, impossible news to families, how does hearing this make you feel?
I mean, this is, you know, a preventable crisis that we are doing nothing about. It makes you feel helpless.
What do you hope the legacy of your children will be?
Take a few minutes to learn about our children, get to know them a little bit, and hopefully folks will understand what's at stake and what can be lost.
I'm working with my community and really building up our healthcare system to face this public health crisis in the same way that we've met the pandemic.
You know, I always tell people we don't get vacation from this. There's no hump day, there's no TGI Friday. You all will go home to your lives, you'll kiss your children. We're gonna go home to an empty bedroom.
We'd like to note a few months ago, the Sandy Hook families reached a $73 million settlement with a gun manufacturer. For more stories like these and live coverage of breaking news 24/7, stream us right here on CBS News. I'm Michelle Miller, and thank you for watching Eye on America.